Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jason Pavao with Datapipe. About a DR solution that we provided for TaylorMade golf equipment maker. And with me, we have Christopher Smith. Would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Christopher Smith. I'm the infrastructure manager for TaylorMade Golf in Carlsbad, California. Do you want me to continue on? So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the golf industry and TaylorMade, and of course our solution that we've drawn up with Datapipe for our DR solution of our ERP system. So I'll tell you a little story to start with. I joined TaylorMade thinking it was going to be a pretty easy gig. I had visions of golf in the mornings, kind of a couple meetings here and there, and then a bit more golf in the afternoon. But couldn't have been more wrong, unfortunately. I'm actually playing less golf now than I was before I was a TaylorMade employee, but I have nicer equipment now, to be fair. But anyway, so TaylorMade really has innovation at their core. Since their inception back in the 70s, they've been innovating all the way, introducing the first metal driver to the PGA Tour back in 1979, and even now we are the #1 driver on tour. And that is probably not going to change. I was lucky enough to hit the new offering, the M1, last week, and it's a very tidy golf club. It's kind of satisfying to see that fly down the middle of the fairway. So it's going to be very popular and already proven on tour. So it's pretty exciting. We obviously focus a lot on advanced aerodynamics, and the M1 is very much in line with that and has the movable weight technology. So anyway, enough about that. Let me pass you back to Jason.
All right. And here's Datapipe. So Datapipe is a hosted management company. We are cloud agnostic, AWS, and a hybrid cloud provider. We're a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for cloud-enabled managed hosting. Leader in Forrester hosted private cloud solutions. Multi-platform hybrid IT solutions for the enterprise. Datapipe Managed Cloud for AWS, which launched back in 2010, so we have quite a bit of experience in this realm. AWS Premier Consulting Partner, AWS Managed Service Partner, and an experienced managed service provider. So we pretty much are a full scope IT solution provider. I'm going to pass this over to Chris to give a scope on the solution.
Something very cheap and very quickly, and we don't want to be worrying about license costs or security. So that kind of left us wondering what we were going to do. Came to the conclusion fairly quickly that cloud was going to be the way to go, but we didn't really know how we were going to get there. So that's when Datapipe came into the picture, and I'm very happy they did, because the timescale that we were given to get this DR solution going was very short, and we definitely didn't have the skills in-house to be able to do it. So, and for that matter, we didn't have the time to go and get my guys trained. So it was lucky that Datapipe came along and helped us architect that solution. So some of the specifics, it was we needed a 4-hour RTO and RPO, and then we'd ship about a terabyte of logs a day. So it's fairly general requirements around the DR solution, but we're going to go into some of the specifics on how we solve that. So from a technology standpoint, due to the size of the database, we had to have ASM, which 2 years ago, and ASM is the automated storage management. 2 years ago, it was kind of tricky to attach raw storage to the ASM virtual machines. So we had to engineer that, and that was kind of tricky. We also, it doesn't actually say it here, but we had a lot of concerns around running Oracle in the cloud due to the licensing perspective, but we had to solve that. I think that's probably enough from that slide. Go back.
So we had a number of technology challenges implementing the solution, and we came up really with a 2-case scenario. So deployment option 1 was to deploy AWS via the RDS, the relational database as a service, with the option for the bring your own license model. So there's a number of pros and cons in this model. Pros would be the fully managed service from AWS, so you don't need to bring your own DBA, which is really handy. no need for a full-time DBA, as I said on the first point there. Backup, snapshot, patching, HA, all easily configurable via the AWS console and API, which is pretty handy. Multi-availability zone in a single region. So a lot of pros there with RDS. Cons, there's no root access to the OS and database for fine-tuning settings, which if you're a DBA, you're familiar with getting in there, fine-tuning the file system, getting in there to logs, looking at things. You don't have that fine-grained access that you traditionally would with a database with RDS. No option to be the target of a data guard replication stream for DR purposes, so that was kind of an eliminating factor for using RDS. And then the instance type at the time of this installation was limited. They've increased the types recently, but at the time there weren't limited options. And then option 2 was to deploy AWS or to deploy Oracle database on AWS via EC2. So the pros would be that we have Oracle support compliance, so we're able to use the OEL, the Oracle provided Oracle Enterprise Linux AMIs, which make the support challenges here obsolete. So you have OVM, hard partition processors, and licensing model. Also from a licensing perspective, it's a lot easier. Full control of the underlying operating system and database configuration, so we can get in there, we can get those files, we can fine tune, we can pretty much tune every component here. We had the ability to become the target for a data guard replication stream for DR purposes, which was a must-have. And then customizable instance types were much wider than what's available in RDS. Cons, you gotta manage this thing, which RDS would handle for you, and you have to supply your own DB licenses, which TaylorMade already had. So obviously we went with option 2, which would deploy Oracle on AWS via EC2. So we got fine-grained access control, exacting control over database versions. So TaylorMade, if they had a particular version that they were happy with and it was not compatible with the ERP solution that they had, we could install the exacting version. Traditional loading, migration, and backup recovery methodologies, access to the OS, access to the file system for performance tuning. We get into the verbose logging access, sysdba privilege, and we have that with RDS, and data guard. And here is this is effectively a high level of the solution here, taking into account the data guard deployment. So we have the actual TaylorMade Carlsbad data center. We have a site-to-site IPsec tunnel, and then we have our US East 1A availability zone and region with our Oracle components and the application tier. So the technology challenges was to configure ASM on AWS. So choose the appropriate OS for the scenario. This turned out to be pretty easy because OEL is available as an AMI in the marketplace. So the default Linux AMIs didn't fit the licensing models that OEL was. So to speak more to this slide here, effectively is RHEL or the AMI Linux or the Amazon Linux, those OSs aren't supported by Oracle. You have to use the Oracle OEL AMIs. Oracle licensing only supported the OEL AMIs, and the settings aren't even compatible with the Oracle Universal Installer on AWS EC2. So we went with the Oracle OEL instances instead of the AWS Linux instances. So far, is there anything you wanted to add to any of these slides?
No, I think we're good.
The second challenge was the disk allocations in AWS. So traditionally, you have your Oracle Linux or your Oracle database environment sitting on a number of runs presented via SAN. So we have traditionally a big iron SAN storage environments. Hundreds of runs can be requested at once. And AWS has a hard limit of 20 per instance. So we had to adjust our methodology to make this environment work efficiently. In this case, we did one disk per ASM disk group, no partitioning of the disk for multiple disk groups in order to make this work quickly and efficiently. And then this is a high level using Cloud Passage as our security vendor for two-factor authentication. Just pretty high level. And then just as a high level overview of the entire solution, let's go over that. So this is what the solution looks like in its entirety from a high level. So we have the TaylorMade-Adidas, or the data center, the production database, or database and production environment in the Carlsbad data center. We have our site-to-site IPsec, and we have our two availability zones, 1A, 1B, and we have our database nodes being replicated to. And then we have the cloud passage as a cloud security methodology. And then, in addition to that, we have the Datapipe managed services component in here as well, which is effectively monitoring management of these components.
Yeah. So we now have the DR solution up and running, and it's been running solidly for about 15 months using Oracle Data Guard technology, which obviously most of you probably know works well 99% of the times, but you do have to keep a fairly close eye on it to make sure all the logs get shipped successfully. A couple of nice features of having DR in Amazon is that we can do on-demand development systems, spin up as many or as few as we like, because we already have the data seeded out there, so we can clone directly off of the standby, which enables us to make the developers very happy, because we can have hundreds of them at any one time, and we can shut them down. And the nice thing from my perspective is I could even pass through costs directly to the applications team to say, look, your development system for this amount of time is going to cost you this much money, which is nice to have. And then the other thing that I really like is that every time we create the development environment, it's effectively doing a DR test. So it keeps my auditors happy too. So I see a lot of benefit in that. We're also very comfortable with the solution now. We've gained a lot of skills around AWS and the marketplace. And so we're looking to extend our DR solution not only from our ERP system, but to our next project, which is our WMS system, which will be going live in November. So we're planning on building the same kind of architecture around that, which keeps it, from a supporting standpoint, having the same architecture makes things very straightforward. Great. Anything else?
Do we have any questions from the audience around the solution? I can't hear you. Has there ever been a scenario where you've did so far?
I mean, no, which is great news. I mean, hopefully it's one of those things, you know how DR is. It's one of those things that you have to have and you hope you never need it. But we do that. We have the development systems out there, so I'm very confident that in the event of disaster, we could have this system, the DR system, up and running as the primary within the RTO and RPO. Even better than that, I think we could easily beat the RTO and RPO. And the goal really is to get our sales team back online and customer service back online. And with this solution, I'm very confident that we get that done.
What's your favorite part about going from Datapipe?
Oh, good question. Actually, it's a good question, but it's a very easy one to answer. The support site is just great. We log tickets and we get answers very quickly. But from a management standpoint, I really like the analytics platform, where I can go in there and I can see at a glance exactly what the cost is going to be for the previous month. And then it even does some nice things around telling me that we're over-provisioned and we have too many snapshots and other ways to cut costs. And in fact, just in the last couple of weeks, my VP came to me and said, look, we've got to cut some costs. I was in there and I managed to basically knock $1,000 off of the monthly bill, which he was very happy with. So it makes everybody happy.
So what is TaylorMade looking at over the next 12, 18 months? What's kind of big on your list?
Okay. So we are very much looking at the business continuity plans to expand this out to a lot of other applications. We have a lot of legacy systems which are built specifically for the golf industry, which are in-house, on-prem, kind of legacy. Definitely not going to go anywhere, but we're not going to touch them either, because we're kind of scared that the skills that built them 10 years ago are very much gone. So now we've got to figure out how we build that into our service continuity plan and get those out into the cloud as well. And then in the near future, like I said, we're rolling out the warehouse management system, which will fall into the same model. And hopefully in the meantime, we'll make some really good golf clubs too.